Hello, Professor BJ here. I wanted to come back and do a part two of the video on Chick-fil-A my last video. So there have been some updates and there's been a change of heart on my behalf. So I wanted to discuss that with you briefly. Everything we say here is for education and training purposes only. But I wanted to give you an update. So, I talked in the last video about the Chick-fil-A employees that were all terminated due to their behavior in the workplace. Chick-fil-A has responded and they said that they were terminated based on their conduct and violation of company policies. We understand that's totally understandable. And so the update is some employees at a Wendy's, in solidarity and in support of the employees that were fired, engaged in the same behavior in their workplace with their uniforms. So guess what? They were fired too. So this begs the question, was it, and again, this is part of my change of heart. Well, let me just say this before I say anything else. So I'm going to defend HR. HR generally has a negative connotation. Whenever employees talk about HR, it's always negative. They never help. They always side with management. But what I would say is, don't throw the whole HR department away. Don't put all HR professionals in one category. There's good and bad in every profession, and I'm always going to defend my profession because I do take, that seriously, the role that we play as decision makers. We have the ability to change people's lives based on our decisions. So in my own, again, this is me personally, I treat people the way I want to be treated. I realize that people are human. People deserve second chances. People deserve grace. And so in this case, again, this is my change of heart. If I were part of the management team that's making the decision, I would do an investigation that's required in order to see the totality of the situation. Who instigated this behavior? Who was a part of it? What was the context of it? Who decided to post it viral? Just so many questions. The who, what, how, when, where scenario, to get to the bottom of how did we find ourselves here. In looking at that, if it was the manager that instigated all of this and everyone else is just following, then perhaps the manager should be terminated. But for the other employees, they may have felt that they were required to if the manager is doing this. Because again, we hold leaders, and I've talked about this before in previous videos, we have to hold our leaders accountable for the behaviors and the actions in the workplace because they set the tone for the culture, the environment, the workplace, providing a safe and healthy workplace for employees. And so if you're a teenager, which some probably were in these establishments, Chick-fil-A, they're going to go along because they don't know anything differently, because again, they're not mature enough to know that I can say no and I can say this is not right. They may feel compelled to go along with the group thing. So for the other employees, this is what I would say, just a general statement, again, my 2 cents. For every employee that's been affected by the terminations, I would say, and again, maybe it may be too late at this juncture, but in the future, if you find yourself in a similar situation, hold yourself accountable. We have to all hold ourselves accountable for actions that we take, whether in the workplace or outside of the workplace, but we're speaking of the workplace. So, schedule a meeting with HR, schedule a meeting with your manager, leadership, and say, hey, I'm sorry, I was wrong. I used poor judgment. I went along with the team. I had no idea that I put the company at risk, because people don't think about that when they're at work. They don't think about what the implications are. Like I said in the previous video, the reputational risk of this company, their branding, investors, if they're publicly held, stock market, stock prices, all those things are factors that they're not looking at because that's not their job to look at it that way. But I would say ask, for forgiveness. Throw yourself on the mercy of the court, as they say, and for the company, again, maybe too late, but I would say as a part of the investigation, find out, everything, not just, what the, social media reaction is, what the effect has been. I mean, all of that's important. I'm not minimizing that. So I just think that, my change of heart is that people deserve a second chance, unless it's something so egregious that it can never be undone. I do believe people deserve a second chance. This will be my recommendation. Put them all on a final written warning. Document it. Make it very specific that they cannot violate any further company policies. whether it has to do with conduct or not, if they violate safety protocols, if they're insubordinate to management, if they're excessively tardy, if there's excessive absenteeism, if they're fighting in the workplace, if they're drinking on the job, if they're using, substances, all those things are part of it. I would say it would lead to immediate termination. Everyone signs off on it. It goes into their personnel file. And so everyone's on the same page. I've given you a second chance because I do believe that, people are just going to be people. Life is going to life. And so I do think it's important to give people a second chance. So that's my change of heart. But employees still have to take accountability. Don't throw HR away. Not all HR people are bad people because they're advocating on your behalf and you don't even know it because they're not required and they can't tell you that they've saved your job in many cases. I mean, I'm talking about myself personally. So they can be your friend. I mean, your ally, not your friend. No one's your friend at work, but they can be your ally and your advocate. So again, that's my 2 cents. That's my change of heart. That's my suggestion. So until the next video, everyone, take care. I'd love to know your thoughts on this. Please chime in the comments. Do you think it was fair? Do you think they should be given a second chance? Do you think the company was wrong?